Hey up everyone, welcome to Yorkshire Gamers Elite Big Wargames podcast and episode 13. And we're recording this on the 27th of August for release on the 28th of August 2021. This episode is going to be something a little bit different from all the previous ones and something that I was thinking about doing when I initially started the podcast. But back then, I wasn't sure whether I was going to do five, never mind 13. So rather than lumber somebody with unlucky 13 as a guest number, I decided to do something a little bit different this week and do a few catch up interviews. So I've been in contact with some people from the first five episodes and just had a chat with them around what was happening. Because if you remember back then, when we started this 6 months ago, would you believe, we were in the deep, dark depths of lockdown 327. I can't remember how many we had. But everyone was kind of looking forward and planning, and people had some plans in the future, and we were kind of speculating, if you like, and thinking about what it was going to be like wargaming in a normal world again. And I know for some people it isn't quite back to normal yet, but for many of us who are lucky enough, we've been back gaming with our friends for I don't know 2 or 3 months now, maybe, and that's opened a lot of doors, and a lot of things have happened to the guests that we spoke to in those first few episodes. Richard Harris, who I spoke to in episode 2, I know his first public guest game, Legendary War Games, is happening next weekend. So good luck, Richard, to that, and hopefully I'll have a catch up with you in the next episode we do. And then Dr. Chris Brown, unfortunately, his Arnhem event that we spoke about in the third episode has had to be cancelled due to COVID regulations and an uncertainty, really, about what's happening in Holland. And I've seen on social media that Chris is thinking about maybe doing one in January. So I'll keep you updated on that if I get any news, which would be great. Sounds like a fantastic event, doing lots of market garden related games actually in Arnhem, at a hotel that's featured in a number of contemporary photographs of the battle. So that sounds like a fantastic event should it go ahead. So there'll be a couple of guests from the first episode, and I'll also be speaking to Mark Freeth from the fifth episode. And there'll also be an interview with Andy Dickinson from Leeds Wargames Club, which is my local club, and just catching up with things that's happened there and the developments during the closing COVID. Of the ones I've not mentioned of those first five episodes, Colin Ashton, I'm hoping to get up and see Colin and actually play a game in real life, if you like. And I'll take my little recording device with me if I get a chance to go and see Colin, and we'll have a chat in person, which will be absolutely brilliant. Going forward, I'm hoping to do these probably every 10 episodes. So hope I'm not getting ahead of myself here, thinking that I'm going to get to 23. But as I've already got guests, or one, sorry, I've got one slot left now between now and between now and the new year. So I don't think I'm pushing the boat out saying that I'll do another catch-up episode 23. So that's quite enough of me rambling on, and I think the best thing to do will be to go along to our first interview, and that's going to be with Chris Breeze from the first episode. So there's no quiz, there's no big game talk other than what comes up naturally. It's just a couple of mates catching up after 6 months off.
So here we are back in the studio with Chris Breeze from episode 1, which, would you believe, Chris, was 6 months ago, mate?
Was it that long ago?
It was that. It seems like a lifetime, doesn't it?
It does seem a long time ago. I think how many miniatures and how many games I've played in the 6 months. It's quite a lot, actually, for me. Yeah, it's been a while.
I think the world has changed for a lot of people since we last spoke. So there's plenty of us to talk about. But back in episode 1, you were on with Gareth Lane, Lord Raglan himself, chatting about the old World War Roses event. So just to kick off, how did that go then?
Yeah, that was great. We were really happy with it. I think, given that, to be honest, we didn't put huge amounts of efforts into it. It might have looked like we did, but for us, it was really just some posting on Twitter and Lead Adventure Forum about the event, using a hashtag on Twitter and Instagram. We were massively helped by John Kabosh of Athena Miniatures, who put a competition on for us, a painting competition, which helped promote it, which really helped boost it. So we were chuffed with it, and in the end, we had 13 games in 9 different countries, played obviously remotely across one weekend, all different Wars of Roses games and scenarios. Did a couple of Zoom calls as well, at different time zones for participants. I think a highlight was, having 2 or 3 people on a Zoom call at a time while we were playing our big St Albans game in Wales, which looked great and was great fun. We were able to just say hello to the people in Canada. Hello, Thomas, by the way, if you're listening. And just chat to them for 5 minutes and just everybody. It was great fun, really funny. People took it in great spirits, and it kept everyone. Well, it certainly kept me sane for quite a difficult part of lockdown. So yeah,
brilliant. So your game, the St Albans game, did that took place down in Gareth's place? Did it in Wales?
It did, yeah, in Abergavenny in Wales, in Gareth's sheds. It was me, Gareth, and Paul Baldwin, and Jim as well. And we did. We wanted 2,000 miniatures on the table. I think we ended up with just over 1,000, 1,500. The town looked good, really good. Gareth's got some great venues and miniatures, and Paul's collection is lovely as well. So it looked great. Yeah, it was good fun. Really good fun day.
Yeah, some cracking pictures on social media. Look really, really, really good. What rules did you use in the end? Was it Hail Caesar you went
Hail
for?
Caesar, yeah. It was an adaptation of Hail Caesar where the Perry twins had helpfully somewhere on Facebook posted the adaptations of Hail Caesar they use when they're playing
that's useful.
Wars of Roses.
Yeah.
So we just nicked that, and it worked fine.
Brilliant. And what were the vital statistics? I think you mentioned a couple of thousand figures.
So it was a couple of thousand figures. So it was about we gave the Yorkists slightly more, which in the real first battle of St Albans was the case. So I think historians think they probably outnumbered the Lancastrians by anything up to 3-1 on the day. So they had a much larger force, but obviously Lancastrians were dug in a sense. So they had some fortification that we had to get through. We gave for people who play St Albans 1, by the way. It's generally accepted that the point where Warwick crosses into the town and people just talk about him going through defences, it would have been a ditch, the Tonlan ditch, which is a defensive ditch around St Albans, which would have dated back probably to Roman times, which would have still been in use at the time. And there's a bit of debate as to whether there would be anything on the top of the ditch, like a fence or something, and we decided there would be. So we built a version of the ditch and stuck a fence on the top of it, just a sort of palisade type fence, So that was the sort of the front line, if you like.
Well, from my limited knowledge of medieval history, the ditches tended to contain not very pleasant stuff from the town and village normally.
Yeah, it's where you chucked everything, basically. Yeah.
It was your kind of municipal tip, stroke
exactly right.
Place to flush your toilet. So it couldn't have been too good going through that. And I think you built like yourself, didn't you? I saw some bits and pieces.
That was quite challenging, to be honest, because obviously we're not using a modular table. We use a flat table, which looks great. But we decided, well, how are you going to represent a ditch on a flat table? So we came to a compromise where we did this modular. So I kind of created a slope, slope up to a point and a slope down to a point, and then dug into that. Yeah. And put some epoxy resin to just represent water. It was obviously representative as all these things are. It wasn't quite wide enough and all that sort of stuff. But it did the job, It did okay.
No, it certainly looked good. It certainly looked good, the pictures that I saw. So yeah, it looked absolutely
Thanks.
grand.
Yeah, we were happy with it.
And was all that done in a day, the game, or did you stretch it out a bit?
No, it was done in a day. I was pleased. I've not actually played a game with Gareth and Paul before, Jim. So we you never know how much people hold you to re-rolls and details and stuff.
Yeah.
But thankfully they were as relaxed as me.
Oh, that's super.
So it rattled along reasonably well, and I think we got the game. There was a bit of there's a break. We did a break for lunch. I think we got the game done the day easy, to be honest.
Yeah.
Gareth was getting overrun, so he did call it in the end. We could have pushed
on
all the way into the evening and killed every last Lancastrian in the place.
Well, and a good thing that would have been
like, I can't win this. Yeah. once the Yorkists got over the ditch, which I think there was a point where we weren't sure whether we were going to make it over, but tellingly to history, Warwick rolled quite well.
Yeah.
In the middle and got through, and so did Richard, Duke of York, got through as well. And as soon as they were in, Gareth was good. It was always up against it, and was the numbers were always going to do him really. So he generously sort of accepted defeat once we were in and running ragged around the town centre.
Oh, bless him. And I remember there was was it Thomas in Canada who had his game outside under a like a tarpaulin or something.
Yeah, I mean, we were really grateful to them for pushing ahead with it, really, because they still couldn't meet indoors, but they could meet outdoors in numbers. Right. So they even though they didn't have a great forecast, because they had snow because they were in Towton.
Yeah.
So they almost had real snow.
Which would have been perfect.
Well, not quite, I'm exaggerating, but it was grey.
Oh,
it was a grey, blustery day.
Yeah.
In Vancouver, it was on the Zoom call, but they were having great fun. So they put the effort to go ahead with it.
I seem to remember that they had like warm fleeces and stuff on. I didn't see any gloves, but they were certainly dressed for a cold climate.
Yeah, they were.
So as well as that one, where else did you get to in the world?
Yeah, so I think one of the nicest things was a couple of guys in Spain, in Barcelona, who put on a 2-person game. There's a couple of guys in Nottingham put something on. There's the people who designed Test of Resolve, David Knight and Tim Cooper. If Wars of Roses fans might be aware of this new rule set, Test of Resolve, which I've helped them play test.
Yeah, I'm going to have a chat with you about that in a second. So yeah, great news they were involved.
They put a game on for us as well. Then there was Stephen Wall in Australia also did a Songbirds game, and there's I think there were 2 games in New Zealand in the end.
Yeah.
And it was a mixture of random stuff and stuff that was based around a real battle, because we said we weren't precious about it. Just get some Wars of Roses figures on the table and we'll count it. So.
Yeah, absolutely superb. So although I do know the results, so from Yorkshire, I don't want to mention this, but just so the listeners are aware of what happened.
Yeah, so on the weekend, out of all the games, Yorkists won 5 battles, Lancastrians won 7, and there was 1 draw.
Recount.
Which is annoying because York went ahead at the early doors. I think at one point they were maybe 3 games ahead. We thought we might get this in the bag.
Yeah.
But there's a run of Lancastrian victories.
Yeah,
unfortunately,
that's a shame. I saw it early doors where Yorkists were in front. I thought, here we go, no problems at all. And then it kind of the tide turned, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, I think the Snowbins game, me and Paul were kind of, neither of us have played a lot of Hellseeker recently, and we were sort of mindful of the fact that if we messed it up with our advanced numbers, it would look particularly bad. So it was a bit of a relief to get in to get one over on Gareth's Lancastrians and get that started in the right way.
Brilliant.
The pressure was on, but yeah, it was good.
So, is there any plans for next year? Are you thinking about making this a regular thing, or what's the plans?
2 or 3 people have said if you do it again, 100% will take part. So I am keen to do it again because it was reasonably straightforward to do.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just I think like a lot of people there, I think I've got one eye on the COVID situation and whether people will be quite so bothered about the remote side of it in hopefully a world that has less restriction. We don't know, do we? But it got my really piqued my interest. Well, why don't we do this in person? Because we did have 1, 2, 3, 4 games going on in Britain. So why don't we all just meet up and just we could have had 5,000 figures in one game in somewhere in the middle of the country, and done it over a weekend, and that could have been the host game for the globe, and just bring everyone together, in a good venue. So it's piqued my enthusiasm for something like that, really.
Oh, well, that'll be keep us up to date with that. That's a decent idea, and
it's just an idea. It's just an idea,
and there's always
have to check that people who actually want to do that, really.
There's always the potential of the venue here in Leeds that we've now got at the club, so which is a permanent one. So just bear that in mind, mate. That's brilliant. Well, thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
That was a great start to my podcast. Was that first episode with World War Roses, and over YouTube and Podbean, it's on about 1,500 listens now, which is very nice. So thanks very much for that leap of faith on that first one. That was very kind of you, mate.
No worries.
So you, just a few things to quickly chat through, and you've mentioned this one very briefly in the Test of Resolve rules, and the guys who wrote that were involved in the World War of the Roses, which I wasn't aware of. But you were involved in was it the play testing of these? Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, so they did a lot of the play testing via Zoom in lockdown, and Tim and David are extraordinarily good at setting up and running games via Zoom. They tend to host them at Tim's house. The way they've done it is they've kind of got lots of different players from lots of different countries, lots of different styles of player as well involved in the play testing, and they were so rigorous about it, which is why I think it does play so well. And it might not have the backing of a big publisher, it's not an Osprey book or whatever. You can get it on Amazon, but it is all intents and purposes, a self-made project. But frequently people just talk about how well and it does play really well. It's a lot of fun. And I think the most interesting thing about it is it's a card-based turn system, which people will be familiar with these days. But also they've made a real effort to recreate or to try to entertainingly recreate what a medieval battle actually would have been like. With kind of masses of men moving against each other rather than these neat little units that we tend, as wargamers, we tend to lean towards because they're pretty. But in terms of gaming, I think the assumption is that masses of men or counting masses of men together in terms of combat is probably not that much fun. But they found a way to do it, if you know what I mean. Chiefly by using a 12-sided dice. One dice.
One dice.
One dice. There's not handfuls and handfuls of D6, which works really well. It's a clever way of doing it.
And what sort of game size, number of players, etc., is that sort of catered towards? What's it for?
So, I suppose it's kind of I wouldn't call it a skirmish game, but also I don't think it's something you'd use for mass battles. We've tended to play games that are about 300 a side. So it's kind of like somewhere between a medium-sized battle and a big battle, or it's a medium-sized battle game type thing. It seems to tend to work well for that. It's very adaptable, really. It's.
And is it multiplayer or is it a one-on-one?
We tend to play it one-on-one. I think it's primarily designed as a one-on-one game, but you could do it. It's done in battles, as in groups of men. So you can easily divide up command in that sense. So it's an interesting set, and I encourage anyone who's into the period to have a look at it. Yeah, definitely.
So how long were you involved with the playtesting then?
Well, quite a while actually. It's probably about 9 months or something overall. Wow. I've probably played about 5-6 games with them.
Yeah.
Something like that. And I mean, people, anybody who's ever played a game with me will know that I love playing games.
Yeah.
But I'm utterly relaxed about the detail of rules. I will wing it and happily absorb it and go with it. But I've got no time to read 150-page rule books. I just can't do it. So it's not going to happen. So I do. And by the way, test resolve is not 150 pages. It's not. It's not a big rule set at all. But I think that they've tended to play with all sorts of players. People who were really into rules and like reading big rule sets and the design rules themselves. That's not me.
Yeah.
And then I think what they find quite useful about me is that I'm relatively inexperienced still with details of rules. I'm quite aggressive as a player as well because I'm quite reckless. Probably because I really don't care that much about winning.
Yeah.
It's nice. I quite want to win.
Yeah.
Am I going to carefully, examine every decision I make to make sure that I'm going to win? No. I'm going to try and do what I think looks fun.
Yes.
In any given situation, it would be fun to charge that, even though it's going to result in chaos in that part of the board. I'm just going to do it anyway. It tends to be how I play. It's probably to do with youth, isn't it? And just being in the throes of collecting things.
Yeah.
So I think I was quite useful to them because I think I was a contrast to other people who they maybe used to playing with.
Very, very carefully and moving millimeters of bait swits and all that sort of stuff.
I just go for it. I don't hang back either, which makes me very easy to defeat if you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
But if you're not used to it, it can occasionally take people by surprise. And then sometimes I get lucky.
Yeah. Shock and awe. Bit of shock and awe.
Yeah. Just I mean, I'm a great believer that we use dice. It's just chance. I mean, there's of course, a well-versed tactical player is always going to have an advantage.
Yeah.
But there's always room for a blagger like me. With dice. So
you can play the percentages, or you can play the game, can't you? I think those are the. We're very much a play the game type in here as well, which is excellent. The rules themselves, then, are they? Because one thing I do like is sort of very tight, specific rules for periods. So are these Wars of the Roses specific?
They kind of are, yeah. So they've got 2 scenario books as well. So they've gone as far as devising a scenario for pretty much every battle and laying it out in 2 scenario books too. And the style of combat as well is geared towards that era. So it was all around trying to reflect how the ebb and flow of a battle would go at the time, because, by the way, it's generally accepted that you probably didn't separate your billmen and your blokes off the farm from your glistening men at arms. All of your close hand-to-hand troops would probably in a battle in a group of men would all just be in together probably. They'd all mix together, and of course you'd have lords with close knights around them, but then beyond that, you're all just a mass that goes for it, and they're trying to reflect that, you see. So a lot of it is around trying not to sort of separate. Well, these are your billmen, and these are that's one unit, and that's good men at arms, and they're another unit, and there's knights, and so they don't do it like that because everybody would be in together. So
No, interesting take on the period, and I've seen a lot of stuff about it on the internet and a few playthroughs and stuff. So seems to be doing very well, which is excellent.
Yeah, it's a real labour of love for them. They're very passionate, and they're clever blokes as well. As you'd expect, and it's they put a tremendous amount of effort and research into it. They really are doing it for the love of the period, the love of the rules, which is great. So
fantastic. So that just brings me on to your own YouTube channel yourself, and I've noticed recently that the Masters interviews have returned.
It's back.
It's back. So, I think it was Colin, wasn't it? Colin Ashton.
It's Colin Ashton. Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
who's been on the show himself. And it was great to hear Colin. Great guy, great collection of figures. Really enthusiastic about his hobby and what he does. So, have we got any more planned, mate? What's the Masters going forward?
There's a couple of things I'd really like to do. So I think now lockdown is lifting. I'm really up for trying to turn some of these videos into things where I go to see people. and turn them into video interviews or videos that they're maybe not as quite as long, but or in depth, but they're maybe something a bit more fun or interesting to them.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of people who I don't want to say just because they're not 100% said yes yet, but there's people who run businesses and who have got really big collections that are absolutely fine or up for me paying them a visit sometime and doing something fun with them. Just looking forward to doing that really, because the Masters interviews is something that the format will always be around. I think I'll probably always do, because I love having those chats with people because you make friends from it. I always learn something, and always genuinely interested in what they've got to say and what they've done with their lives and their collections. I suppose they were kind of part out of a necessity because everything's being done over Zoom. You can't go and see a person, so I'm looking forward to taking it out a little bit again now.
Yeah, I've had that experience with Pete Morby from Elite Miniatures. I went on the road and I went down to see Pete at Elite with me little handheld microphone thing, and I really enjoyed that. I mean, sometimes there's practicalities with this sort of stuff with time and what have you, of going to see people and bobbing down to the South Coast or wherever. It's probably not practical for me up in Leeds, but just bobbing over to sunny Doncaster was not much of an issue. So no, I look forward to seeing those, mate. I think they're really good.
But one of the things is that, being in Nottingham, there's so many people and businesses and places really that I can just get to in 20 minutes.
Yeah. You're
so I need to make good
boy.
Use of it.
Lucky boy.
I really
lucky
am.
boy.
I very much am.
Lovely. Well, just before we finish off then, I'll just ask you what your sort of current and future plans are gaming wise then. You're obviously you're big into the Wars of the Roses. Is that finished now, or are you still on with that project?
Yeah, so it's kind of the back burner now, because obviously it was building up to St Albans 1, put a lot of effort into that, and then I was due to get the whole collection out pretty much for Hammerhead. Because David and Tim very kindly said, we're going to be bringing Test of Resolve to Hammerhead. Would you like to bring your figures, Chris? Bearing in mind that you're 20 minutes down the road and we're coming from Scotland. And I said, absolutely, that's no problem, lads.
That's
and I was really looking forward to
that. Yeah.
Because I've not really had my collection at a show before. So when they said that, I was like, absolutely, no problem. Yes, of course. I'll see you there. So I started to paint towards the game that they were doing, which was it Hexham? So I was painting towards that when Hammerhead got cancelled. Totally understandably, by the way. So we're not doing that, but I hope to get the collection out, either for a rearranged version of that. And I'm off to the Bill Hooks Bash in September as well, which is a Never Mind the Bill Hooks event in Derby, which I'm looking forward to. But then apart from that, the building of the collection is going to take a bit of a back seat. There's a few bits of units that I'll keep doing because I'm now on with English Civil War.
The new project, the new hole that you've gone down.
Yeah. Which is partly, I think I'm going to blame you for this.
Oh, it's my fault again.
And Gareth. Because just speaking to yourself and Gareth and talking about the visual appeal of big games and what a big game actually is, and how you can get to quite a big game easier than you think you can if you change certain things. I'm going English Civil War reasonably big. So I'm doing early war parliamentarians at the moment. So start with Edge Hill, and it'll probably to do what I did with Roses. I'll build up towards just get to sort of 200-300 aside, and just then kick on from there, and probably not stop until there's a good sort of 500 aside. And reasonably flexible as Civil War is, as we all know, because uniforms are there, but they're not really there. So you can play around and be flexible a lot. And also, there's I hate to say it, but there's plastics around for Civil War. There's Warlord plastics, which I think in some cases make absolute sense, particularly with the cavalry. So I'm probably going to do a mixture of metal and plastic. So I'm looking forward to that.
The plastic English Civil War came out just after I'd finished my English Civil War army, so all mine are metal. And there's rather a lot of them. So other friends have got plastics ECW, and it's a great period to get into. And there's lots of decent sized battles to have a go at as well. So have you thought, are you going to go for pike and shot for rules, or was it to kill a king?
Not sure. Yeah. I'm not sure. I mean, typically be me. I like to start off with something really simple and gentle as soon as I've got enough figures.
Yeah.
So I'll probably do Pikeman's Lament first. Just because it's skirmish and I can just get them out on the table really fast, and then I can say, well, I've painted this many, off we go, and I can just get into it. And so I'll start with that, and then I'll build up to something like pike and shot. Yeah, I think the best thing making Civil War is like Wars of Roses. The history is all around this area and across the country, and it's just great inspiration everywhere for it. So
because the English Civil War Museum's Newark, is it? I can't remember.
Newark. I was there the other day.
Oh, were you? Yeah, it's one place I haven't been.
It's good.
I must go. I must go and have a look around. Well, it's been brilliant having you on, mate, and just a short little catch up there. But it's great to for both myself and all the listeners who've kind of invested the time listening to you in the Wars of the Roses at the start, and to get a catch up and to see what happened. So that's brilliant. Thanks once again,
mate. It wasn't
all
just talk.
It wasn't all just talk. It actually happened, which is brilliant. Yeah. So thanks very much, Chris, and hopefully I will speak again.
Take care.
It was lovely to catch up with Chris there and have a little bit of a chinwag about how the Wars of the Roses went and how things are going gaming wise in general with young Chris. If you've not already, then Winston_AB Aris on Twitter and on YouTube. Well worth a follow. His instructional videos, his introductory videos are really, really good. We'll be hearing from the other part of the dynamic duo from the first episode. I'll be speaking to Gareth Lane later on in this episode. But first, I'm sure lots of us, those of us fortunate enough to be out and about gaming again, are back down in our local clubs and gaming with friends that we've probably not seen for 18 months or more. So I thought it'd be a nice idea on this episode to bring in a voice who is a member of the Yorkshire Gamer crew and also one of the committee members at Leeds Wargames Club. So I popped along to our new venue, Hicks Hall in Burley in Leeds, and I had a chat with Andy Dickinson, who is a friend for a very, very long time, about what's going on down at club. Well, hello everyone. I'm at Leeds Wargames Club, my little Wargames Club, and I'm here to have a chat with all things Leeds Wargames Club because there's lots of things going on. And here with me is one of the Yorkshire Gamer crew and committee member, or what's your current position?
Secretary.
Director.
General dog body and game organiser for Fiasco.
Excellent. That you just about do everything, don't you? So
well, yes, it will fall apart if I didn't actually do everything.
So just for everyone listening, then, what's your name?
It's Andrew Dickinson.
All right, lovely. Thanks, Andy. Leeds Wargames Club been going for quite a long time, and you've got a rough idea, a bit of a history of what had the club.
According to our, shall we say, elder statesman.
Yeah.
Because I was only 5 when it was actually joined up. So it was formed in 1972, so next year will be our 50th anniversary.
Yes,
which I've just realised now, so it's a case of
we've got to
start planning the birthday party. So basically 3 guys, including current member John Smith, had obviously gamed elsewhere, decided to make their own club in Leeds. It moved around for a few years. It did Downley Baths. It shared a room with a model racing slot car, Scale Electrics, TM, before it actually ended up at the Upper and Lower Whalley Liberal Club in the mid-70s, which is the bit that I remember from.
Yeah.
I think I joined probably when I was 6, so it would be probably just a year after the club started.
Right, so that was 77.
I think I first started gaming in 74.
Right.
Because I was definitely picked on at primary school for bringing minifig spaceman figures in.
Oh, brilliant.
I definitely remembered the sort of like 3rd edition WRG rules.
Yeah.
Because it had ents and things in the back.
Yeah. Oh, brilliant.
And the 73 versions of WRG's, was it the 1927 to 50 tank rules?
Yes. Yeah. D6 kills everything.
D6 kills everything.
That's the one.
Tigers are superb. Everything is a tiger.
Yeah.
Basically, I will say we've bimbled on, but 79 we organised a show for one of the competitions, which then transformed into Fiasco, which was first held at the Queen's Hotel, which is right next to the
Railway station.
The railway station.
Yeah.
Stayed there for a few years. Then we moved to Army Baths.
Yeah.
We went to Pudsey Civic Hall, then Army Baths because that was bigger.
Yeah.
And since 1996, when it opened, we've held Fiasco at the Royal Armouries Museum.
Brilliant. So in terms of club location then, I first went when it was the Liberal Club, and that would have been in the late 80s.
Yeah.
And then we've moved around a bit since then.
Horsforth, bit more Horsforth.
Yeah.
Where else have we been? The Headingley Club, which
Yeah.
was the old Servicemen's Club, which is just next to the cricket ground, which
Yeah.
made it interesting when there was a test match on.
Exactly.
Stayed there for a while
Yeah.
until last year, where basically we had one of our members pass away, and the silly sod left us quite a legacy with specific instructions to buy somewhere where we could game as long as we wanted.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he passed away 3 years ago. It's taken us a few years. We've had a couple of, shall we say, hopes dashed.
Yeah.
We put a bid in for an office building,
Yeah.
which fell through. There was another building in Armley that looked fine for us, and then we found out it was actually a Grade 2 listed building, and some work had been done to it, so we're not touching that with a barge pole. I found a working men's club that I loved, but I don't drive, so everybody with a car says we're not moving there because we like our cars.
It was
allegedly.
It was definitely in one of the less salubrious areas of Leeds. It was,
but I mean, financially, it needed some work, but we just still kept the working men's club there, so we'd have actually been cost neutral. But eventually, after, I say, we looked at a church that was probably full of asbestos, so I mean construction, so it's no. And just over a year ago, actually, one of the club members, in fact John again, mentioned that this hall was up for sale, and he knew about it because his first job was actually in the factory next door.
Ah, right, yeah, that's how he knows about it.
So, the Haddon Hall Picture House was built in 1905.
Yeah.
So it's 116 years old, and was a cinema until 1960, at which point it got converted into, surprisingly enough, a bingo hall.
Ah, bingo. Legs 11.
Legs 11.
Clicking to click.
Well, yeah, definitely legs if they're falling over. It still is a bingo hall until it closed. There's a website which is British Cinema's Bygone Age, and there's a picture of it in 2005. And it's in a very sad state of affairs. It was bought by a builder who put some money in. He was going to convert it into a workshop, but eventually he ended up leasing it to a dance school from 2008. When COVID hit, the dance school, basically their lease was coming up and they couldn't really meet. So there were some arrangements, so they decided not to renew their lease but just gone to a month by month rent, at which point the guy said, well, I'll sell it then.
Yeah.
And we went, yes please.
Yeah.
Took us about 6 months to go through all the rigmaroles of trying to find what was wrong with the place, what needed spend, solicitors, and eventually we purchased it just before Christmas in 2020. We're about to move in when the next set of lockdowns turned up, so we actually started gaming in June.
Yeah, so there's quite a long way, quite a
Yeah,
long time
I mean,
between.
we're sort of
stuff,
like, since since the time we says, yes, we'll buy it, please.
yeah.
I'll say it took us 4 or 5 months to actually purchase, and then we've had to let it live fallow, as it were, from the 5 months.
So if we go back to that, and I'm sure we won't mind mentioning his name, the guy was called Brian Hicks, and it's safe to say that Brian was a character.
Well, we're stood in a room with most of his collection. He was very big on ships.
Yeah.
Some of these ships are very big, including a scratch-built Tirpitz in 10mm scale.
Yeah.
Which he took around the shows, and we tried to sink it with swordfish.
So that Bismarck's what, 4 or 5 foot long?
About 4 and a bit.
And it's all made. Brian's made. There is one that's a kit, I believe.
Right. But basically, there is. He was buying the magazine where you
buy
a bit,
yeah,
and it give you a sheet of plywood and stuff like this.
Yeah.
So he's building this. He's also built a hood.
Yeah.
We've also got a box full of a Japanese aircraft carrier around here somewhere. But he realised that all this balsas type stuff, or MDF, was laser cut. So once he punched his thumb out, he still had the rest of the thing. And he thought, what I will do is I'll get my cornflakes packets, because everything Brian built was made of cornflakes packets, and basically used the cutouts as a die to rebuild a waterline version. He got Pendragon to cast up some AA mounts and stuff like that, but it's made of Vosine shampoo bottles, aspirin lids. If you look carefully, you will see an amazing amount of junk that most people will throw away. And I say, he probably lived off cornflakes, because if you pick one of his LSTs up, it says Kellogg's on the bottom. Yeah.
Well, I'll definitely get some photographs of that and put it on the YouTube version of this.
There's tugboats and GBs.
So what, Brian put on quite a few games, didn't he, at shows and
stuff.
So what would people remember? What would stick out?
If it was 30 foot by 12 foot, it was probably Brian.
Yeah.
I remember. Rotterdam and Saint Nazaire are probably the two ones that people just went, "Oh my God, what have you done?"
Because Saint Nazaire had virtually every single building, didn't it?
Yeah, that's. There's actually, I think it's in the other room, or it might be at Rob's house. Yeah. There's a box game. I think it was an SPI box game called The Raid on Saint Nazaire. Yeah. And basically they took the board game and the rule sets for that and made it in 10mm, including the dock, which is probably where they got the idea of using XPS foam, which was another big fan of. Yeah. So he actually made the dock, so he actually had to make the Tirpitz to actually make sure it fit in the dock, just to make sure, just to make sure, including the Campbelltown ramming the gates, and then a lot of 10mm commandos running around the town creating havoc.
Yeah, so because the first Brian game that I remember was at the Armley Fiasco, where he turned one of the squash courts into a Battle of Britain. Centre.
We this is where we made our first mistake. You would never ever mention project idea to Brian, because he'd have actually done it by the week after, or sketched something out, or done something. So I, jokingly said, well, there's a little corridor, there's three badminton courts, squash courts, and a corridor over the top, so you can actually look. And I thought that would make a great viewing platform for the control centre, Maidstone or wherever it was, for 5 group during the Battle of Britain. And I thought, I was in a reenactment, and I'm sure I could get some of the Darcy's in a reenactment to dress up as waffs and get sticks and move things around. A couple of weeks later, there's some 20mm thick marine ply being painted green and blue with hexes on it. That's, I think that was 15 by 12. And it's got all the airfields, all the targets, and he'd made little, they indicate little shuffle board things that you see on the film, and even made broom handles with sticks on the end so you could actually move things around. And it's a case of I'm not wearing a skirt. So he did that a couple of times. In fact, I say he repurposed a lot of stuff into the German attack at Rotterdam in 1940, which is why we've got around about 300 Dutch buildings in our terrain store.
So in terms of megalomania, then he is
He's not quite up to your level in figure-wise.
Right. Okay. I was trying to get myself out of it there.
No. I would say. I mean, we're looking at 50 to 60 really useful boxes full of stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of it is plastic and airfix, but then all of a sudden you pick up some World War II desert and you think, that's actually metal.
Yeah.
Why does my back hurt?
Yeah.
I mean, this box has got 4 longbows in 28mm.
Yeah.
I mean, why?
Yeah.
But I mean, he also got redid the Battle of Tsushima in 1/600 scale. Yeah. But he also bought the ships in 1/3000 scale, so you can actually game the approach to the actual battle in 1 scale. And once the guns opened up, you swap to the bigger scale.
Yeah. I don't think I've ever gamed the same battle in 2 scales. That is definitely
not
beyond
at the same time.
At the same time, no, that's definitely beyond me, I have to say. In honour of Brian, then the name of the hall has been changed.
It is now instead of Haddon Hall, it is now Hicks Hall, which I've now learned that if you want to name a hall after a person, you've got to get it all signed off by all the family members. So that was okay then. So it's been a learning experience, but yes, Hicks Hall was named in July, which was sort of like coming, was our first open day. Yeah. So the open day then went quite well. There's quite a few people coming in. There's quite a few in. So you yourself did race to the north or south? I can't remember which way it was.
The first bit.
The first bit.
I always think it's race to the south first. Anyway, I can't remember.
Yeah, south.
The one the one without the 15-inch battleships. Yeah.
And then we had some board games. We also had a visit from Pendragon. Because it was supposed to be the same weekend as Hammerhead, but that got cancelled. But they'd already booked the hotel, which was they couldn't cancel, so they went down to have a good night with some mates down there. And then on the way back, they popped in and set up shop in our drive, and I bought decals and some World War II stuff that I didn't really need to buy, but it was there, and I'd not bought anything for a year, and it just felt nice. Yeah.
So just for the people listening, I'm just kind of describe what we've got here.
So we've got a main hall. I think we can get. Well, I'm a draftsman, so surprisingly enough, I drilled the place. I think we can get 16 6x4s in there if we're cosy. Yeah. Which of course we won't now because we're being sensible and socially distanced. There's a back hall that we hope to have a 16 by 6 table, and upstairs which will be another 12 by 6, which is basically where we're standing now. Yeah. A little mezzanine on the other side, which will end up being like a role-playing game, a quiet game or something like that. Yeah. Which is handy because it's actually got a window looking down onto the main hall. Yeah. So we will be playing campaign games where the commanders cannot leave. Excellent. And we'll have to text people that, no, the other left! I mean, we've played at your house for so many years, and it's a case of, even your table isn't big enough to do some of the stuff. Yeah. But now we get the opportunity to set up a game, and if it isn't finished in a night, you don't have to pack it up because the cleaners are turning up the next day. And we've had games that have gone over 3 weeks, so campaigns, multiple games, big games. Shall we say a lot of the membership is slightly advancing, mature section. Age, yeah. So because we actually own the place, if you want to turn up on a wet Tuesday at 10:30 in the morning and game for a whole day with three or four of your mates, you can do. We're opening it up for other clubs. We've got we'll be hosting the Northern Doubles in a few weeks' time. I'm trying to set up a BattleTech weekend, which is ending up been a fight between the Harrogate Club and the Bradford Battletech Battalion.
Yeah.
And that'll have random mercenaries coming in from other places from around the country. Yeah.
So yeah, all in all, it's kind of widened the scope of gaming that we can do.
Yeah.
And
it's scary.
Yeah, it is. Now, we thought that we were limited to the 12x6 in my house.
Yes.
And now we are not limited to anything. So
Lookout
World, I think, is the
I think the largest table could probably fit in is 40 foot long, something like that.
Downstairs, probably 40 foot.
Yeah, probably 40 foot.
And
probably a couple of those, so
yeah.
I'll have to get the scale rule out, so if you're firing across the gap.
Yeah.
But
all perfectly doable and all perfectly normal for us.
I mean, I've got a 3D printer, so I'm actually printing out 5th Guards Armoured for absolutely no reason whatsoever. The fact that I might be able to get a 60 foot long table.
Definitely. Well, the record for a market garden table is currently 72 feet from John Lander, who was on the episode 10, and he did it in 54 mil.
Right, no. I mean, I we'll be doing it in 10 mil.
Yeah, and 60 foot. 10 mil and 60 foot.
Well, what we'll do is we'll do 60 foot, then turn a corner, and then do the other 60
so
foot.
120 foot. So we might be able to beat John's record.
Yeah,
I like that.
We have enough tables.
Fantastic. So just to finish off then, you mentioned briefly during the history that the club runs a show called Fiasco.
Yep.
And that is now and has been for quite a long time at the Royal Armouries in Leeds.
Yeah, about 92. It was announced that the Royal Armouries outgrown the Tower of London. As in, they had a shed full of metal bits, shinies, and they were looking for a place to move. They looked at Sheffield, and eventually Leeds was selected at Clarence Dock, and we became involved with the Friends of the Royal Armouries. So they came to Fiasco for about 4 years before the museum opened up. Ironically, Brian
weapons and stuff, didn't they?
Yeah. So they did saw and they did displays and they had models to say what the museum was going to look like. In fact, Brian actually worked on the building because he was a plumbing engineer, so he was on the design team for the museum itself. And I say June '96 we moved in. Someone not a million miles away was chairman at the time, and we were quite worried because it was a new place. And I do believe the phrase was, if we get less people than last time, I will eat my shorts. Basically because it clashed with an England game in Euro 96. And everybody's quite excited. Yeah. We may have abandoned...
Certain members of the committee could possibly have been found in the big cinema watching the England-Spain game, if I remember correctly.
and the penalty shootout.
And the penalty shootout, yeah.
So we actually went back down to the hall and helped pack up Smiley.
Yeah.
The following year, the Armouries actually changed their policies. So they had travelling exhibitions and whatever was actually going to be in the summer, so we swapped Fiasco from our normal June date to the end of October. Very cleverly, I think we actually did it at the last Sunday of October, so we always get an extra hour in bed because the clocks go back.
Yeah, clever move.
I see that's the best move ever made by a Wargames Club ever. So since '97, we've been here every year. In October, the Army's built their own conference centre, which was more friendly for actually putting things in because it's designed as a conference centre. Royal Armouries Hall is very nice if you're sat around a table wearing a dicky bow and listening to an Elvis impersonator. But the lighting's not wonderful for a trade show. So in the last about 12 years we've been in. Well, originally it was called
the Jimmy Savile.
The Jimmy Savile Hall.
Jimmy Savile. And for some strange reason, I can't quite put my finger on it, it's been changed.
It was actually very strange because he passed away the day before Fiasco a few years ago, and the commiseration book was actually in the front hall. We thought, nice. We've got like a load of people coming in and whatever. I mean, it was a bit strange because it did have the 3-wheeler and the Jim will fix it chair fixed onto the wall.
Yeah.
Well, things being what they are, surprisingly enough, it changed its name by the year after. So it's now Saddle Hall.
No surprise there. So it's obviously not been on. Is it been 2 years or 1 year they've missed because of COVID?
We missed last year.
Yeah, so just 1 year.
So it's Halloween this year, 31st of October.
Yeah.
It's been in November once because a lot of the club are American football fans, and it may or may not have clashed. So we're not saying we moved Fiasco so we could go down to Wembley,
but we did. Yeah. We did.
So I say it's the last Sunday in October. We were quite worried about cancellation fees and stuff like that, but the Royal Armouries International rang up and said, "No, we've just booked you for next year."
Brilliant.
And just popped us across.
Yeah. Anything different this time?
Yeah. There's a few of the trade have either ceased trading or sold up or just not really looking forward to doing anything this year. So we're losing a couple of traders, which means that there's more space for the games. Hopefully we can have the same sort of number of games or even less. So we're probably looking for a bit more space between each.
So that's kind of giving you an opportunity then to space it out a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it's the Royal Armouries are quite big on their health and safety and access, and so am I. I always make sure there's 8-foot gaps between everything, so you can get wheelchairs through, and you don't have to knock figures over because you're trying to bend over on a trade stand, and unlike a few of the places we've been to where.
And if people aren't aware, people haven't been to Fiasco before, I think it's quite important to point out that it is within 20 steps of the main museum.
Yeah,
and the main museum is free to go in. So you can come along, spend the morning at Fiasco or the afternoon at Fiasco, and the other half of the day with the family in.
We've had people saying that's not what that was used for, and I'm sure some people turn around and says, "Well, they got one. We'll have a look, shall we?"
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the actual museum itself is 21, isn't it? It is 21. Yeah. So it's its 25th anniversary.
Yeah.
There's going to be some work to it, which I may or may not be involved with. But I said, there's exhibitions. They've got the only surviving set of elephant armour around. They've got a very large and very spectacular Japanese collection, including samurai blades that are 500 years old, and you think, that's still sharp.
Yeah, that still looks brand new.
That looks brand new.
And for those of you who remember last episode, I spoke to David Marshall and talked about his Agincourt diorama, and that's also on display at Royal Armouries. Excellent. Well,
including a Pavia display.
Which
may or may not be important in a few years' time.
It may be. And speaking of displays of Italian wars, are you expecting any games of that at Fiasco?
I've no idea. It depends if anybody sends an email saying, "Hello, please, can I have a 12x6 game 4?"
I thought I had.
Well, it was inferred.
Yeah, right. Okay.
You're on the list.
I'm on the list. I might get in, and I might be there, everyone. So come and say hello if you.
Yeah, because that was it the second time Jutland came out?
Yes.
Yeah, it was the second time.
At the Royal Armouries, so we have been there before. So thanks very much for taking time to talk to us tonight, Andy, and come and have a chat with us. If you see me at Fiasco, I shall be in my new Yorkshire Gamer t-shirt, which is the latest haute couture. So thanks again, Andy, and we'll speak to you soon.
Okay, thanks.
Great talking with my old mate Andy there, back at the Leeds Wargames Club, and that was the second outing for my little Zoom voice recorder. And the room we were in had a lovely sort of reverb sound. I'm sure it'd be great for recording a rock album. It really did sound good in there. Yeah, hopefully I'll be putting my Italian Wars stuff on as a game at Fiasco. So as I said in the interview, bob along. I'll have my Yarkshire Gamer t-shirt on and just come along and have a chat. And I look forward to seeing you down there. So this sort of format is great for this sort of thing. Little half an hour with Andy just talking about Leeds Wargames Club and the new hall and the upcoming show at Fiasco. And nice little news piece, and suits this format a lot better, I think, than the long form 2 hour shows, which are not going away by any stretch of the imagination. The next episode, episode 14, that I'll talk about at the end of this podcast, is back on course, back on for the normal show format. So next up, we're going back to the dim and distant past of episode 1, and I'm going to talk to the other member of the dynamic duo, and that's Gareth Lane. And just before I go to that interview, I'd just like to say that this is the most expensive interview I've done so far to date, because I'm going to apologise now for a little bit of the sound quality issues, and it was all down to me at this end with my old HP 255 laptop, which I have discovered is about 9 years old, and I've been running the podcast with it since the pilot episode. And it was always a little bit quirky, and I would always have to turn it half an hour before I did an interview so it could warm up and start working enough to actually do an interview. And it kind of decided that enough was enough, and it was going into voluntary retirement on Monday night when I spoke to Gareth, and it took about 45 minutes to get the interview set up. So thank you, Gareth, for your patience. And eventually, when we got there, it was playing up all the way through, and there was a delay and everything. After I recorded this interview with Gareth, I went straight online and got myself a new laptop. So this show's been put together on there, and yeah, fingers crossed it will make things a little bit quicker and speed things up no end. But here we go. Here is a quick catch up with Gareth Lane, better known as Lord Raglan.
So back 6 months ago, we were speaking to Chris Breeze, who we spoke to at the start of the show, and the other guest on that episode 1, that leap of faith with doing a podcast with the Yorkshire Gamer, is Gareth Lane. So welcome back on the show, mate.
Thank you, Ken. Cheers. Nice to be back.
When we spoke 6 months ago, we were in the middle of lockdown and we'd not seen anyone for a while, and you were kind of planning for the Wars of the Roses event and the big St Albans bash at Shed HQ. So how did that go, mate?
It was a really successful event, actually. It couldn't have gone better. Everybody turned up on time, which was great.
Yep.
Everybody remembered their miniatures, which was awesome.
Yeah.
We set up really quickly. I think what was a highlight of the day was that, apart from myself and Jeff, the rest of us hadn't met before. We'd gone like a house on fire. And we used a set of rules that neither any of us were familiar with. None of us were familiar with those rules whatsoever, and we just cracked through it, and it was great. It was really good fun.
And the big build project for St Albans Town, that looked quite good.
Yeah, that's it was. I think it looked quite spectacular on the table. It was very fitting. I thought the setup of the town.
And I think you got in a few pieces of terrain from elsewhere, or was it all your own work in the end?
No. Chris brought some down. I think Jeff brought some down as well. And a guy that I'd bought some stuff from previously had made me the St Albans clock tower.
Oh,
which
brilliant.
really set it off, you know.
Yeah, absolutely perfect. And apart from that game, have you been regularly gaming since?
I haven't stopped actually. It's been great. I've just played so many games in the last 6 months. It's just been brilliant to get back around the table and just have a crack with people, you know.
Yeah.
We're supposed to be playing this Sunday coming up, but unfortunately, one of my friends' daughters has got COVID now.
Oh, no.
We're going to play it safe and call it off and do it another day. But yeah, it's been. I've gained more in the last 6 months, than I think I've done in years.
Yeah, I remember you saying in that first interview that you'd kind of not reaped the benefit of being on Twitter because of COVID. So have you met up with any new people and gamed with people you've met during COVID?
No new people have come down.
Yeah.
I say it's been games that I've been with before, but we played a lot of games. You may have seen stuff on Twitter that we did the ultra moderns.
Yeah.
We played again sort of more medieval battles. There's definitely been a bit of variety across the period spectrum. Yeah.
And have you found a greater enthusiasm from everyone to get gaming again?
Oh yeah, I mean everybody was super keen to get back. So it was just lovely to see people, turning up at the house and sitting down with them and having a chat about what we were going to do, and then getting out into the garden and having some lunch as well, and it just making a day of it,
So there was none sort of last minute, I can't really be bothered. All that's gone now. It's
yeah, totally. I think people are just they're ready for it now, aren't they?
Yeah, I think people have kind of realised that what we took for granted beforehand could suddenly just be taken away. So get out there and have a few games and enjoy them. I think it's the lesson that we should give to everyone from that. So with the games that you've been playing, then you were just starting your Italian wars when we last spoke, and I think it's fair to say there's been a bit of progress.
There's been a fair bit of progress. I mean, nowhere near the amount that I was planning. I mean, by August, I think I wanted to have both sides fully painted. I've not achieved that. I've got a fair-sized French army painted, and I've got parts of the Italian, Spanish, sort of in progress. But I got diverted about halfway through. I started reading stuff around the retreat from Moscow, and that definitely drew on my time. But I did have a little bit of a lull as well in painting, which is unusual for me.
Yeah.
Sort of midsummer. I think work was quite busy as well, so I dropped off my usual productivity, which slowed it down again. But I don't think there's any reason why the Italian Wars project can't be finished by the end of this year.
Yeah, because I think you were planning, weren't you, on sort of sticking with the Italian Wars until it was done. And then what was the bug? What was the thing that sidetracked you onto the retreat from Moscow?
Well, I think when we spoke, I had a World War I project and some Vietnam stuff to do, and I did that quite quickly within a month of us talking. And then I just said, crack on with the Italian War. But I don't know. I think it was a bit of reading that I was doing, stuff I was watching on YouTube, and I just thought it'd be really interesting to do. It would be something different for the guys to play, because that's one of my things that I'd like to offer people different gaming experiences when they come to the Shed HQ. They may not have done somewhere else. So the retreat kind of fitted into that quite nicely.
Yeah. So when you, I think you've had the Italian War stuff on the table. Was it last weekend?
No, that was when I went up to Westbury to play with Ian.
Yeah.
And that was completely his collection.
Ah, was it? I didn't know whether that was yours as well. I didn't know whether you'd taken it on the road, so to speak.
No, the Italian Wars they remain unblooded at the moment.
Are they? Oh, that's a real shame. Hopefully soon they'll get a game in, which would be great. And what rules did you use with Ian?
So Ian made his own rules up,
Okay.
which he's been developing over a couple of years. I have to say it was great fun.
Yeah. Oh, brilliant. So you've not had a chance to try Furioso out yet?
No, still. I've done lots of reading. I'm ready to go. I got my cards ready, to play. So, really looking forward to it. I just need to find a local gamer now that has an opposing force until I actually finish painting mine done. Yeah.
Oh, well, fingers crossed you will find somebody nearby. You've got other projects on the go though. I've seen a very large box of stuff arrive at Shed HQ on the Twitter. What's this project and where's that come from?
So again, kind of sticking with the Italian War, doing some reading around that. I was looking at the Aztecs and and what the Spanish did across there, and I thought, well, I've got a jungle now from Vietnam. I just need to add some choice pieces, of Aztec architecture on there, and I would be good to go from a terrain perspective.
Yeah.
I always think it's quite nice if you have got some nice terrain layouts. If you can have a couple of periods that you can use with those layouts.
Yeah.
It's definitely a lot more cost effective, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, I've always fancied doing the Aztecs. I just think it's a colourful period, and have them fighting the Spanish across there. I think that could be a lot of fun.
And you'll have a bit of crossover with your Spanish from the Italian Wars, I would imagine.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. That do the Spanish now, and I can use them for both periods.
Well, I managed to catch up with David Marshall, the terrain master himself, in the last episode, and you've been knocking out some terrain yourself, haven't you? I've seen like a ginormous Aztec building, and then there was another like government building or something. Are these being printed?
3D printed, they are not by me, by my friends, but so they'll add into the collection.
And so, what are you doing? Are you ordering it from them, and then you're building them up and doing the detail?
No, as I said to you previously, I'm not a terrain maker.
Yeah, I wondered if you'd changed suddenly. That was
no. I did some the Vietnam jungle, and that was okay. And I think it's it matches the stuff that Tony Bragg does for me.
Yeah.
Quite nicely, but it's not to the quality I think that Tony can produce terrain. So I'm going to stick with buying terrain off others.
Yeah, well, you're sticking with me because I buy all my terrain in as well, and I think it was fascinating speaking with David, because I always, after about 30 seconds of a terrain project, just lose interest completely and start painting a figure. So to speak to somebody who does that all the time was very interesting. Go on.
I was going to say, Kenny, it's such a messy blooming job as well, isn't it? Building terrain. It just everywhere. And you just need a lot of space, don't you? To build it and let it dry. And I know Dave's got his workshop up there now that he's rented out. Perfect, for him.
Yeah.
I can understand if you're doing it away from the house, in a purpose-built building, that's awesome.
Yeah.
But to do it at home, it's just too messy.
Yeah.
Not for me.
I can imagine there'd just be flock absolutely everywhere. It'd be like being on holiday and finding sand all over your hotel room. I could just imagine flock all over his house for months at a time.
Well, I think the word that my wife used to me was, "I married you because you're a white collar worker."
Yeah. Very true. Very true. You gotta let the terrain workers do that sort of stuff. I think that's the way forward. Most definitely. Most definitely. Anything that you've sold? Any projects that, because I know you occasionally get rid of things. You were photographing some stuff up last time I spoke to you.
Yeah, that huge Schwartz collection has departed. It's gone over to Gloucester. A friend of mine was interested in it.
Yeah.
I never gamed with it, but I was at the point, I think, where something had to go. I had to create space.
Yeah.
We talk about end games, don't we, in wargaming, and I think I am at that point now where if I want a new collection, then something's going to have to give.
Yeah.
The Dutch Wars, I say, that made a nice little hole in my in my cabinet, but I'm sure they're going to be filled quite quickly.
Yeah. So are you thinking of that as going forward then, of rotating stuff through if something new starts, something old has kind of got to go?
I mean, it wasn't as if stuff was kind of falling off the shelves in Shell HQ, but it was at a point where I just felt it just felt a little bit claustrophobic. I think it's quite nice if you have a game room where you're able to kind of walk around it, around the table without, climbing over boxes and things like that. So, with this stuff going, I also sold my World War II collection as well, which again, I don't have a lot of interest in it. I much prefer modern.
Yeah.
So that's gone recently as well. So again, it's created some space for some other bits and pieces,
Yeah, because you've got quite a large Afghan collection, haven't you? Is that Russian Afghan sort of, or is it later?
No, it's I say it's later. It's a US, British, say Afghans, Iraqis. But yeah, I think modern wargaming kind of is where my my interests really lie. If I'm doing a skirmish, that would be my my preferred period.
And is that around insurgent battles like that, or have you thought about doing like modern tank warfare, Russians versus NATO, that kind of thing?
No, I think I do enjoy the combined arms sort of engagements around sort of between platoon and company side. That kind of fits in really where I think with what you can actually achieve with 28 mil on a 12 foot by 5 foot table.
Yeah. So I've also seen that, I mean, not that you haven't got anything else to do, but are you taking part in Stephen Wald's Bavarian Challenge?
Yes. Stephen twisted my arm with that one.
Did he?
Yeah, he clocked on. Obviously, I was doing the retreat, and he said, Bavarians will fit in there quite nicely. Well, I had a detachment of French and of Poles. So yeah, a small detachment of Bavarians is not going to hurt at all.
No, you reckon? And have you been able to find Bavarians in like a suitable winter type thing, or
no?
Yeah.
I had to bite the bullet and just go for Perry's. But yeah, and I'm not skilled enough, to do green scarves and things like that, which would be nice. But it'll just look a mess if I try that. So he's going to paint them and use the darker trousers. I think they were greys and browns in the winter, as opposed to the white attire.
Yeah. Well, he's not managed to persuade me to do anything yet. So I have had a look round, and I think there was a unit of Bavarians that fought in the Italian War of Independence, which is going to be my Christmas project. So I'm not saying no yet, because it's 3 months long, I think, isn't it, the Bavarian Challenge?
Well, it stopped in October, doesn't it?
Is it October? Oh, right. Yeah, well, I might safely miss it then. Because I'm on holiday in September, so that's going to cut a big hole in that time, unfortunately. But very much like yourself, I don't particularly need anything new to be going on with at the moment. So we'll just draw a little this little chat to a close there, Gareth. And have you got any plans long term? Any big games planned? Any new armies? What's your thoughts for the future?
Well, I guess besides the ones we've talked about already, I do want to kind of bulk up the World War One collection.
Yeah.
Maybe get some tanks in there as well, and I need to do a nice trench system. I think that would be the plan for probably spring, I say next year.
Yeah.
I think the Italian wars will certainly consume the rest of this year. If I want to get it finished, then I really do need to kind of get my head down on it. Otherwise, I say I'll go along with the Aztecs. Probably start them next month, but it'll just be dribs and drabs really.
And of all the figures come in for the Italian wars, they're just waiting to be painted, or are you still bringing stuff in?
No, everything's bought and it's and they're ready to go. What I tend to do is buy in bulk these days, as opposed to dribs and drabs. Usually you can negotiate a reasonable discount.
Oh, well, that's sensible. That's Yorkshire thinking. That is making the most of your money. Well, it's been lovely talking with you again, Gareth. Thank you very much for coming on. Apologies we had a few technical issues before we started this, and we've had a few sound issues, I think, as we've gone through this. But it's been great to talk to you again, mate. And hopefully, in this new world, we will get to meet up and have a game not that distant future.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you again, Ken, for inviting me on.
No worries, Gareth. Thanks a lot, mate.
Thanks very much for that, Gareth. Lovely chat and catch up there. Great to have a talk about all things going on down at Shed HQ. Unfortunately, the final interview had to cancel late last night. And that just leaves me with a slot at the end of this episode. And it was a bit late to try and call up somebody else to do an interview. So what I've decided to do is to bring forward a little section that was going to come into the episodes from episode 15. I think I was planning to bring this in. And that's when I'm going to introduce a sort of a magazine episode with multiple co-hosts as well as myself, and it's going to have a magazine feel to it. And part of that magazine was, of course, if you're our age, my age, is a problem page. So a wargaming problem page run by who else but Nora Batty. Our Nora, bless her. She knows everything about everything, and you try and tell her any different, and good luck if you do. So, here we go with the first episode. So late last night, it all went wrong, and we had to get a bit of a filler sorted. And I brought forth this idea, and I put it forward on the Twitters and on the Facebook, and just announced the feature and asked people to send in their wargaming queries and problems using the hashtag Ask Our Nora. And for any Southerners, that just means it's somebody that you know called Nora. So hashtag ASKOURNORA. And of course, questions are closed for this week, but I shall be doing this again in about a month's time. And I'm more than happy to answer any of your wargaming queries or problems with the help of our Nora. So, Nora, are you too busy for this, or are you okay to join in?
I'm not doing anything.
Oh, that's grand. Thanks very much, Nora. I'm looking forward to your deep insights into the wargaming industry and helping out members of the public. Just before we start, I just need to make sure that this is a comedy section, and I may say things that people might be upset with, and this is purely for comedic effect, especially if you are someone who likes to base their vehicles, for example. There may be some controversial opinions coming up in the next half hour. So let's get on to have a look at some of the stuff that came up, and lots of questions came in on the Twitters, and only 3 on the Facebook. So the first question we're going to look at came in on the Twitters quite shortly after I put the shout out, and this is from @MadAxeman. MadAxeman does a podcast, by the way, if you didn't know. Tune into that if you haven't already. And the question from them is, how do you make sure the Yorkshire tea mug doesn't get mixed up with the paint water mug? That sounds like a bit of personal experience there. What do you think, Nora?
Does he know what he's doing?
I don't think he does, love. I think he's getting confused because the Yorkshire tea mug, I think, will be glowing like simmering gold will glimmer in the moonlight. It will have a almost holy glow coming from it, and one could not possibly accidentally put your paint brush in there. Of course, you can do that with coffee because that just takes like dishwater anyway. Would you drink coffee, Nora?
No.
Quite right too. Don't want any of that stuff on this show. So I hope we answered that question, and let's move to the Facebook. And first question that came in there was from Barnaby Orr. Hello, Barnaby, big long-time follower of Yorkshire Gamer. Glad to have you on board. And this one was quite a sensible question, I do have to say. Barnaby's asked, what do you think has changed the most in the hobby over the years? And what do you think are the most positive and potentially negative effects of those changes? Well, that is a good one. And it is going to be something that I am going to cover in a future episode because I'm going to speak to my friend and now author, Dr. Stephen Barker. And Stephen was one of the first people I ever started gaming with back in the 80s. And he has recently returned to wargaming in his golden years after many, many years off, not gaming. Still massive interest in history. He does battlefield tours and that sort of thing. So he knows his stuff, but he's sort of come back to wargaming after a long time away. And I'm going to speak to this sort of thing. But to answer your question now briefly, most positive thing is obviously Yorkshire Gamers Elite Big Wargames podcast. Where would we be without it? But putting that to one side, I think the hobby has changed massively over the years, and mostly due to the advent of the internet. It's so much easier now to obtain information on uniforms, on battles, simply with a click of a button on Google or wherever else, and you can instantly obtain pictures of virtually every single manufacturer's range of figures, and you can order them immediately. And now you're probably getting stuff delivered to your door within 2 or 3 days most of the time. And those of you old timers on here with me, you'll remember writing off and sending a stamped address envelope or a postal order to get a hand printed catalogue, and 9 times out of 10 they would never have any pictures of the figures in there. And when you did get round to ordering them and managed to persuade your parents to stump up a cheque, you'd be waiting 6 weeks or more for your figures to arrive. So I think that's very much the positive of the hobby. It's a lot more accessible now for a lot more people, and it's a lot easier to research any project that you're going into. Negative effects, not so easy to say really. I think we're very lucky at the moment in the way that the war games hobby stroke industry is going. Something that some people have said to me who are newer into the hobby is that there is a plethora of information, too much information, if you like. That's difficult for me to see from my viewpoint, from somebody who knows exactly what he wants and what he's going to look for and a battle to pick or a period to play. But I can see for somebody coming in to the hobby fresh, if you type in wargaming, even if you type in a specific period of wargaming, then lots of different stuff's going to come up it's very difficult to, on your own, I would suggest, see a clear path through to, starting a new project or getting into the hobby. There's stuff around, and I think it's finding the wheat from the chaff. As we spoke earlier to Chris Breeze and the great stuff he's done with sort of introductory videos, and I'd encourage everyone. I doubt people who are starting will listen to this podcast. But if you are and you've just started and you've randomly come across this when you've been looking for a podcast dealing with cleaning sheep's feet or something like that, and you've accidentally come across this, then I would recommend that you get onto Wargaming Twitter. Follow myself, Gareth Lane, Stephen Wold, Chris Breeze, the Two Fat Lardies, Sydney Roundwood, and many, many others. And you will find that there is a great, helpful community out there in Twitterland for new starters, and you'll be helped along your new journey. And in addition to that, Barnaby just asks a sub question: what would you like to see going forward? Well, I think for me, the big change that's coming up in wargaming is 3D printing. And it's positive in some ways, but I'm a bit wary of it because I'd like to see the traditional manufacturers carry on. I wouldn't want to see the Perry twins go, you know what, people are printing stuff off for 2p a time, so we can't make a living from that. So let's go off and be travelling minstrels and play ukuleles around Bolton Market on a Sunday to earn our living. I really want the traditional stuff to stay there, and hand sculpting, which is such an amazing craft. When I went to see Pete Morby down at Elite Miniatures, to see the stuff that was in the process of coming to life, on his little upturned paint tins with the dollies that were half built, and how fantastic that looked. So I'd hate to see that go, and I don't think it will. Certainly not in my lifetime, anyway. I think there's too many people like myself who are invested in the old school gaming. But I hope that we find a way. I hope we find a way for 3D printing and traditional manufacturing techniques to work alongside each other. So thanks very much for that, Barnaby. Great question, mate. It's back to the Twitters for the next question, and this comes from the legendary Noise Machine, and that's at Legendary Noise, and that's with a Z in Noise. So I'm suggesting that they may be a fan of the classic 70s rock band Slade, who would always replace their S's with Z's. Come on, feel the noise. The question is there a modelling use for excess nylon stockings?
Are you going to stand there and let me be insulted?
Sorry, Nora. No, I don't think you meant you, love. I don't think you meant you. I think you could use excess nylon stockings for a variety of things. You could use them for a bit of camouflage netting. That would be the obvious one, I would think. And then there would be, I'm sure I've seen people use them mixing in with plaster of Paris to do like modelling hills and stuff. And then, of course, in the Sweeney game, you'd be sticking them over your head and going and doing a blag down a local bank, wouldn't you, geezer? So that's that first part of the question there from the Noise Machine. Second part, he asks, who makes the best Nora figure? And that's a good question. I'm not sure. I've not really looked into it. I've had a quick look on Bad Squiddo Games. Hi Annie, looking on there to see what we've got, and a couple of the Land Girl models that she makes might fit the bill. So I'll have a look into that. And if this becomes a regular feature, then like Dave the cameraman from the Yorkshire TV on the YouTubes, I will get and paint up a Nora figure. So thanks very much for that, Mr. Noise Machine. Staying on the Twitters for the next question, and this one is from at Gareth Lane, from Gareth earlier in the programme. This is remarkably clean for Gareth. I was quite surprised. And he says, what's the best way to get a red wine stain out of my shag pile, please, Ken? Well, have you got an idea, Nora?
I'll give you a tip.
Oh, thank you, Nora. What, on this bit of paper here?
Yes.
So, Nora says, don't give me problems, give me solutions. Take this as an opportunity. It's like a Christmas cracker. They sell one of them fortune cookies from Chinese. What she says is, why don't you dye the whole bloody carpet red, and then it doesn't matter whether you drop any red wine on it again. And if you drop white wine on it, you can't tell. That's sound advice from Nora. I hope you like that, Gareth. So let's head back over to the Facebook and a question from Simon Stokes. Hello, Simon. Here's one that's been vexing me lately. Right now, there seems to be a proliferation of rule sets around for any period or scale you care to mention. What criteria do you use to work out which set is the right one for you? Good question, Simon. I think our criteria here at Yorkshire Gamer will be quite a lot different to a number of people, mostly because of the way that we game. So the way I do it is I'll get into a new period and then I'll try and get a list of all the rules that are available. And if you are doing something like World War II, there's going to be hundreds and hundreds of sets of rules that you need to look at. Whereas if you're doing something like I'm doing shortly, the Italian Wars of Independence, sort of late 1860s, 1870s in Italy, then there are hardly any choices at all. First thing is to obviously research your period and see what rules are out there. And I think that's a lot easier to do today than it was, although there seems to be more rules out these days. They're easier to find, whereas quite often, unless it was advertised in one of the Wargames magazines, you wouldn't know about it, and you might see a pamphlet or something on a stand at a Wargames show and have a look at them. And again, unless there was a review in the magazine, you wouldn't see how that was and how it worked and what the mechanisms were. Whereas today, on the YouTubes, somebody will have done a playthrough of rule sets. So this is how I do it. I break it down, find what's available, and I start to look at them individually. And if they are, for example, competition sets of rules, straight in the bin. If they are predominantly for points-based games, straight in the bin. If they have a gimmick, not gimmick, but if they have a mechanism that is going to break down when you get to a reasonable size game, straight in the bin. If I think they are too simplified, straight in the bin. Those sort of initial weedings will generally bring us down to maybe 2 or 3 sets of rules. And what we'll do then is I'll probably purchase those, or I will have a look on YouTube and see if people have done run-throughs, see if they are generally okay, look all right for us, and purchase 1 or 2 of them, and then we will try those out here at Yorkshire Gamer with a couple of games just to see what we think about those particular rules. And then after all that, we chuck them in the bin. Because what we will 9 times out of 10 do, we will like the core of a set of rules, and we use that as a basis and build our own set of rules around it. So that's probably not the answer you wanted to hear, Simon. We are quite picky and choosy. We very, very rarely use any set of rules untouched. We very rarely change a set of rules once we get into it. We play Johnny Reb 2 still for American Civil War, which have been around for 30 plus years. And because we play big games and we play those big games with a number of big collections, we only get to use those collections once every year or maybe 2 years. So we're not flitting around with different rule sets. We're coming back to a rule set that we're all familiar with every year or 2 years. I say reasonably familiar. And the game is the thing rather than the rules. I know a lot of people like to try different rules out and flip from one to the other. We just like to play the games with rules that we're familiar with and crack on. Now, a lot of that said, and you've got to remember that at Yorkshire Gamer, we are the same people who've been gaming together for 30 plus years. So I'm not looking for a set of rules that's going to allow me to go to a club or a shop, for example, and fit in with the crowd and get games that way. So the very, very specific reasons why we choose rules at Yorkshire Gamer, and not necessarily for everyone. And of course, you've got to be able to have a bloody big game with them as well. And if this next question doesn't get me into trouble, then nothing will. And this is from Nordic Weasel Games, and that's at Weasel Nordic on the Twitters. And they ask, are people who base their tank models criminals? Well, that's a controversial one, and I think I'll go over to Nora for this one first. What do you think, Nora? Are they criminals?
Yes.
Well, probably a bit strong, but can't disagree with Nora on that one. Next question, a little less controversial, this one. This is from Gareth Beamish at ADC Painting on the Twitter. And Gareth asks, now that Dawid Malan is scoring test runs after joining Yorkshire, is it time for all English test cricketers to be granted temporary Yorkshire citizenship to improve their performance? It's a good question, Gareth. And I would, although we're drifting away from war games and talking about cricket for a second, that's no problems on this podcast. We have been known to discuss the cork on willow game occasionally. I would suggest that I would go further than that. I would say that unless you are born in Yorkshire or you have lived in Yorkshire for more than 5 years, you should be ineligible to play for England. In fact, it should be the Yorkshire team that represents the nation, with a couple of chuckers from the other place over the hill. Because I don't like to big up over there, but they do have some pretty decent chuckers in that side of the Pennines. So here's my All England team: Geoffrey Boycott, Martin Moxon opening the batting, Michael Vaughan, Joe Root 3 and 4. Going to bring in all-rounders from Cheshire, Ian Botham, and from Lancashire, Mr. Flintoff. And then David Bairstow, obviously, wicketkeeper, with Ray Illingworth, Darren Gough, and Fred Truman doing the bowling. And we'll chuck in that lad from Burnley, Mr. Anderson, to make up my 11. So if we get some DNA from them lads, do a bit of cloning, and I think we're good to go for the rest of eternity when it comes to cricket. That is a top team. Carrying on down the Twitters now, another question from Gareth. He's asked a question about the average horse to infantry ratio during the Italian Wars, and I'd have to look that up, I'm afraid. Is there a singular book which outlines both minor and major battles during the Italian Wars? Unfortunately, in the English language, the sources of information on the Italian Wars are relatively poor. And still, I would go back to Charles Oman's History of the Art of the War in the 16th century. Very old now, but still has a great coverage of the period, and also covers the things like the Burgundian Wars just prior to the Italian Wars and the development of things like pike blocks and stuff like that. So it's a lot easier to understand the change of tactics and the development of tactics in the Italian Wars. So I recommend that book. And then things are slowly getting better. We have Helion, who are bringing out the Italian Wars books. They've done one on Fornovo and then one on some of the later battles, Ravenna and a couple that I can't pronounce. Yeah, those are the books I would go for at the moment. Why do Yorkshire Welsh wargamers make the best wargaming chums? Well, me and you, mate, we know the answer to that one, don't we? And back to the legendary noise machine for another question on Twitter. Staying with the Italian Wars theme, is there a cheat sheet way to paint the different sides in the most accurate stroke known colours? There's a simple answer to this. Nora?
No.
Yeah, no, there isn't. Not that I'm aware of, anyway. And the different uniforms I've used very, very lightly there for the sides are not really known. You're kind of looking at paintings, contemporary paintings, and in each one of those contemporary paintings, virtually every single individual has a different colour clothing. And similar to the medieval period, you could expect a similar theme within a unit, potentially, if the lord or the person in charge of a particular unit had bought a job lot of cloth in a certain colour, or wanted to have a recognised battlefield feature like a certain colour feather, or something on the arm or something along those lines. That would be the extent of the uniform. Now, the stuff that I do, what I tend to do, and I've explained this a couple of times before, is I will pick the flags I'm going to use for the unit that I'm going to paint, and then I will use those colours as my guideline for the colours of the clothing, and then paint them randomly based around those colours. And that's how I work. But I don't think there is a cheat sheet, and I don't think there ever will be, because I don't think we know enough information about uniforms, and that's in inverted commas, if there was any. So that's the way I do it. That leads me on to the next question from Gomo the Great, from at Gomo the Great. And they ask, is 20mm unpopular or out of fashion now? That's a good question. I've not really noticed that, but it does seem to have gone out of fashion. About 15 years ago, I remember everything was 20mm World War II, rapid fire, Britannia miniatures with a go-to. Everyone did 20mm. And it just seems to have disappeared a little bit. People have gone either up to 28mm in terms of scale and down in terms of skirmish, or they've gone to the latest Warlords 12.127345mm tanks that they're bringing out. So yeah, it just seems to have gone under the radar. It's still out there. I've got friends who play rapid fire still in really big games, and people have got lots of big 20mm collections out there. But it just does seem to have dropped off the radar just a little bit. A few more questions to go. How are we doing for time, Nora?
It's a bit late, isn't it?
It is a bit, but I think we can crack through these last few and get them all answered, Nora. So the next one comes from at James Manto 4, Hot Lead Actual, out there in Canada. Welcome to Yorkshire Gamer. And James asks, what is the best pie to eat before, during, or after a game? Well, that's easy. Bradford City is famous for its chicken balti pies, and therefore I would eat one before, during, and after the game. Supplementary question to that is, what is the best brown sauce to pie ratio? And I'm not going to suggest to anyone that you put brown sauce on a chicken tikka pie. I don't think it'd work. What do you think, Nora? What would you say to someone who put brown sauce on a tikka pie?
Oh, you dozy beggar.
As for the additional question from James, he's asked, what would Nora suggest is the correct shade of blue for Napoleonic Bavarians? And Nora's written back to me. She's gone for Vallejo 963 medium blue with a mid-tone of Vallejo 841 Andrea blue, and then a light dry brush of 844 deep sky blue. So thanks very much for that, Nora. I really didn't think you know the answer to that one, but you've done a cracking job there, love. Next question comes from my old mate Ken, the eccentric man, and he asks, what is the best ACW rule set for large battles? And I've been shouting this from the rooftops for quite a while.
Will you stop shouting these things in the street?
Oh, sorry, Nora. I'll keep my voice down. It's Johnny Reb 2, mate. That's what we play. We've been playing it for over 30 years. And other than a slight change to the massively overcomplicated charge procedure in the initial rules, we have used that for that long. We've done First Days Gettysburg at 20-1. We've done games over 30-foot tables with it. Works perfectly for us. Very old school now, but it's the set for us. Next up is a question from my Wargames plastic crack dealer, Richard Naylor. Hi, Richard, at Wargames Odyssey. And he's asking Our Nora, what's the best guide to get someone started in wargaming in the Palestinian campaign in World War One? And what would you recommend as starter forces? I'm not quite sure what to say about this.
Say something. Anything.
All right, now, right, I'll try my best, love. it's a difficult one because, like a lot of the obscure stuff that I'm tending to do at the moment, there is a very limited amount of information around, and a lot of it's not specifically designed around wargaming. So, over Open Sites, Mark Hargreaves, his website, um, and I'm going to plug my own, the Yorkshire Gamer website as well. There's lots of stuff on there about the games that I've done, and Mark's done a painting guide as well. The rule set, if the Lord spares us, that I spoke to Nick Skinner about in a previous episode, that's a good place to start, to be honest, because it's got quite a bit of information in there about how forces are set up, etc. And you don't necessarily, unless you're Yorkshire Gamer, of course, have to go in and do Palestine or Mesopotamia, which is my preferred bag in World War One. In 28 mil, Pendra can do a fantastic range in 10 mil, and one of the regulars here at Yorkshire Gamers gone into that scale for Palestine. So I would go 10 mil, and I would probably get like a varied selection of units, probably 8, 10 battalions aside, and some horse, which in 10 mil is not that much, to be fair. Get the If the Lord Spares Us rules and crack on, have a game. There are no better, I don't think, guides to it than the official ones available from the Imperial War Museum. They're a bit dated now, but these do give a lot of information about troops who were at battles, and the maps aren't particularly brilliant, but it does allow you to locate them on Google Earth and places like that, so you can sort of put your old school battles in a modern setting. And a lot of those areas, to be honest, haven't changed that much since the war. A lot of the open areas. So that's that one. We'll move on to the next question, and this is a continuation from Richard and also Legendary Noise. Two questions kind of come together. Sorry, what was that, Nora?
Do you want a raspberry ruffle?
I'd love one, Nora. Is Ice Cream Man outside?
Yes.
Oh, brilliant, Nora. Here's a couple of quid. You bob out and get us a raspberry ruffle and get yourself one, and I'll answer these questions. See you in a minute. Right, so back to this then. So, Legendary Noise Machine said, I bought some figures for a skirmish game. But I look at the books, look at the figures, look at the books, and fall into analysis paralysis. I have to say, I don't really think Italian Wars is a skirmish game, or can be skirmished very well, but never mind. And Richard Naylor said, a similar thing happened to me. I bought a big box of Warlord Landsnakes, but I've struggled to really get going on them. So here's a top tip from me, big Italian Wars player, don't buy any Landsnakes. They are a nightmare to paint. And if you're not really, really into it, you're just going to do what Richard's done and just gone, oh, can't get going on them. I would suggest going into Italians or Spanish or French, and stay away from Landsnakes until you've really got into the period and you're really going to go for it. Hopefully, fingers crossed, if I get my finger out and I get my book finished on the Italian Wars, Wargaming the Italian Wars specifically, I'm going to give people a few ideas on starting forces, and I've done a little starter force myself as an idea. Some people might think it's quite big, but it's not really. It's a force for a 6x4 table, which, as I've said before, is pretty average. Some people can't manage that, and I appreciate that, but all in all, most gaming clubs run on 6x4, so I'm going to call it an average. So the book will have details of a starter force for a 6x4 army for an Italian condottieri, and I think that could be the way to go. So I'll put that box of Lance next to one side, Richard, and crack on with some Swiss or some Italians. And same for yourself, old Mr. Noise. I would pick a unit, look at somebody's on the internet, look at one of Gareth's, look at one of mine, go on Olicania, James Loach's website, and look at one of his units. Just try and copy that and start that way, and you'll soon find yourself getting in a rhythm. Next question comes from Sven Folkeson. I hope I said that right, Sven. At Svenfu on the Twitters. And he remembers me and Stephen Wald talking about Tinny Tin, the Vallejo Gamer paint that we both rave about. It's absolutely fantastic. And Sven says it was inspired by the conversation between you and Stephen, and he's bought some Tinny Tin and he's forgotten what he's supposed to do with it. What do we say to that, Nora?
Oh, you dozy beggar.
Nice, easy one, this Sven. Black undercoat, and then anything that you're going to paint as metallic. So that's silver, bronze, brass, anything, gold, anything that you're going to do as metallic. Paint the base layer as Tinny Tin, and then build up your silvers and etc. on top of that. And it works absolute wonders, absolute wonders. Tinny Tin are recommended for everyone. Well, I didn't realise Nora had come back with the ice creams then.
You used to like my company once.
Wasn't saying anything, Nora. I didn't realise you'd come back.
It's no good pretending you can't hear me.
I'm sorry, Nora. It won't happen again. It won't happen again. Last question. This is from Phil at Petrocelli69 on the Twitters. And he asks the question, how do I increase my painting productivity and become a painting machine like yourself and Gareth Lane? Yeah, good question. A lot of people ask me this, and I'm sure it's a question Gareth's been asked before. Batch painting is the way forward for me. And different people do it in different ways. Gareth paints, can do 30 or 40 or even more figures at a time. I tend to do mine in batches equivalent to a base. So if I'm doing a pike block with 8 figures a base, I'll paint 8 figures at a time. And that speeds your painting up because you are painting one colour. You're not changing colours all the time. So if I'm painting boots, I'll paint 8 sets of boots. I'll highlight 8 sets of boots. If I'm painting with Italian wars, everything isn't a uniform. So I'll be painting a red trouser here, a red arm here, half a body in red. Do all the red, and then go back and do white or yellow or black or whatever colour that I'm gonna do. So when you sit down and you're going to paint some figures, get comfortable painting in a batch. And even if it's like me, 6 to 8 figures a time, you will speed up quite dramatically rather than concentrating on one figure at a time. Here's my controversial piece of advice. If you've got anything fancy, like a wet palette, anything, just chuck it out. People spend so much time messing about painting. Everyone's trying to get better at painting by not actually painting. You paint onto a surface that means it doesn't dry out very quickly. So metal, bit of old MDF, get your paintbrush in it, put it on the figure. Nothing more than that. Don't go watering your paints down. Don't go using all sorts of solutions, and just paint the figure. Nearly swore then. And you'll find that's a lot quicker. I've done some painting tutorials on YouTube. By all means, have a look at those. But that's how I do it quickly. I batch paint and I don't mess about. I just get the paint on the figure. So there we go. That's the end of that first little problem page. I hope you all enjoyed that, and I hope you enjoyed all the little help that Nora gave there. Do you want to say goodbye to all the people, Nora?
No, thank you.
Okay. Goodbye from me and Nora then. Well, that was the first episode of hashtag Ask Our Nora. And it was a bit rushed from what I wanted to do with it, but I hope you enjoyed it. It was a bit of a laugh putting it together, and I want to thank everyone so much for putting questions in such short notice yesterday evening. So thank you very much for that. That just leaves me to say goodbye to this episode 13. Episode 14, we're returning back to normal, and I will be speaking with a chap called Robbie Roddis. Robbie has been around the gaming world for a long time, and he was the person who was responsible for getting me into gaming the Italian wars. So I should be blaming him for that and talking about his many years in the war games hobby. And we'll be concentrating in the final section of the usual format on Peter Gilder. And Robbie has a website dedicated to the great of the hobby, and we'll be talking in detail about that. So I'm looking forward to that one. So that one should be out second Friday in September. So until then, see thee.